Hi, I'm bigcal and welcome to my world. Today is another recent video games pickups video and it is themed around Game Boy, Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance games. So let's just dive straight in then with the first Game Boy game, Alleyway. It's Breakout with a different name, and this was also a launch title for the original Game Boy. At first it offers nothing new, but then by the second level things change up with the stage now scrolling from left to right, and it increases the challenge. And there are also bonus stages that feature Mario as well, although I didn't play long enough to get to one of them. Yeah, it is a fun little Breakout clone. Nothing more needs to be said. Alleyway. Okay, moving on we have Godzilla, the series. Based on the late 90s cartoon, which in itself was based on the 1998 Not Really Godzilla film. You play as Not Really Godzilla, who auto-walks to the right as people, tanks, helicopters and planes try to kill you. You can defend yourself with your atomic blast or a tail whip. And at the end of the third stage, there is a giant monster. Take its health down to halfway and it runs away, and you just continue to walk. This is very slow and very dull, but I have heard that the sequel is a lot better. Well, what can you expect? Godzilla doesn't really have many good games, does he? Sadly. Right then, we have now Ring Rage. This is an arcade game ported to the low-powered handheld. So you pick between 5 characters who have different fighting styles, from wrestling to boxing and martial arts, and then you battle in the ring. It is a typical wrestling game for the era with mostly punches and kicks, and then that button mashing style of grappling. It's mainly just one for my wrestling game collection and not something I really intend to put much time into. It is what it is. Okay, moving on then, we have Solar Striker. This is a perfectly serviceable, vertical scrolling shoot 'em up. Move around, shoot everything you see, and collect the odd power-up too. It even has stage bosses. Sure, this game isn't going to wow you, but back in 1990, this probably was a really cool thing to be able to play on a handheld. And yeah, it's a fun game. Check it out. Solar Striker. Worth it in my opinion, still a very cheap game, pretty fun. Then we have Bugs Bunny and Lola Bunny in Operation Carrot Patch. So this is a 2D platformer where you play as Bugs and Lola, collecting all of your stolen carrots. Run, jump, use a hammer and even fly for a short period of time to navigate the levels. Apparently, you can switch between the two of them in levels, but I did not know this until looking it up afterwards. It seems that Lola Bunny can slowly descend from high places, avoiding fall damage, which explains why I kept dying. Yeah, so this is definitely a game I should have read up about before I played it. But other than that, yeah, a pretty good 2D platformer. I now actually know what to do. It's probably going to be even better. Moving on now, we have Looney Tunes, another 2D platformer. This one was originally released on the original Game Boy, and then got this re-release here on one of those double cartridges that will play in colour if you insert it into a Game Boy Color or a Game Boy Advance. Oh, and it's made by Sunsoft as well. So you play as multiple Looney Tunes characters, though I only play through the first level just to get a taste of it. And yeah, it definitely seems to be a pretty fun game. And it's probably one I will play through a little bit more, because I can't imagine it being that long of a game being on the Game Boy. Looney Tunes! And how about now some Tiny Toons with Tiny Toons Adventures 2, Montana's Movie Madness. Guess what? It's another 2D platformer. I actually showed off the first game, about an entire year ago now. And this one is just an improvement visually and audio-ily. It's okay, but I did find jumping to be a little stiff, and as a result I died a lot by not properly being able to jump over enemies or objects thrown at me by enemies. I guess I need to spend a little more time with it to get used to the timing of jumping, more than anything, as overall the game does still seem very fun. So yeah, a little bit stiff on the controls, but can be worked around, I think, if I just played it a little bit more. Then we have Daffy Duck in Foul Play. Foul Play. You get it? Foul Play. Psst. You'll never guess what. Yep, a 2D platformer. And another Sunsoft game as well. So you play as Daffy, who is hunting for treasure. And you have an unlimited supply of dynamite too, it seems. It looks and sounds good, but again, I find jumping here to be a little bit awkward, causing me to take damage when just trying to clear stage hazards. Also, as far as I could tell, throwing dynamite is the only way to kill enemies, and it's not exactly the best controlling weapon. Bit disappointed with this one, but maybe I'm just playing it wrong? Who knows? Yeah. Foul Play. Classic. Okay, moving on, we have Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3. This is one of those how have I not owned this until now games. It is the original Wario Land game. Still using the Mario Land title, I guess to encourage more people to at least check it out, since Wario had only appeared in Mario Land 2 up to this point. An unusual game for the time, as you get to control the villain, with the goal being to hoard as much gold as possible. Wario can do a big running tackle to break blocks or run through enemies, as well as pick up enemies and throw them. And you also gain some different abilities through hats that you can get in the game. A pretty good Game Boy game that everybody should have in their collection. Finally own it. I've owned the second game in the series for years, but yeah, never owned this one until now. So, fun. Okie dokie, let's move on to some actual proper Game Boy Color releases and not the dual carts that will play in both original Game Boy and Game Boy Color. These require Game Boy Color or above. So we have Tiny Toon Adventure, Buster Saves the Day. Oh, and also came with the manual. Guess what? This isn't a regular 2D platformer. Instead, it's more like Bubble Bobble with a single small area, a few platforms in it, and you just have to defeat all of the enemies to move on to the next area. Honestly, for a Tiny Toon Adventure game finally getting onto the dedicated Game Boy Color hardware with a little bit more power, it is pretty disappointing that it didn't go the 2D platformer route again. Although I do suppose those weren't really working that well either, as they were a little bit stiff on the old controls. It's okay. Sort of. Yeah. Whatever. Next up we have Looney Tunes Collector Martian Revenge. This is the sequel to Martian Alert, and Martian Revenge plays basically the same. It's a top-down action-adventure game with enemies, collectibles and platforming. This time though you play as Marvin, who can shoot with his laser gun. However, he cannot jump, and so, like the first game, you must collect other characters in order to fully navigate levels. The first character you come across is Canine, a dog, obviously, and he can jump, opening up the level even more. On paper, this seems like a really fun game, but I spent 10 minutes wandering about the first level, being completely clueless about what to do next. So it does seem like a guide is kind of necessary for this game. Yeah, so it is often compared, weirdly enough, to Pokemon because you can collect a ton of characters from the whole Looney Tunes series, and then you can switch between them as you need to for their different abilities. I just couldn't get far enough to collect any more than one dog. So, yeah. Next up then, we have Action Man, the greatest hero of them all. Search for Base X. This is yet another 2D platformer, but an action platformer, with immensely stiff controls that I just never seem to get working for me properly. Aiming the gun at any kind of angle but straight just never seemed to work properly and was very much a chore, and landing on vines always seemed like a 50-50 chance of whether or not I was going to land on them or fall to my death. I really wasn't a fan of my time with this one, so yeah, very disappointing and complete waste of money. If you're going to go with an Action Man game, Don't bother with this one. Useless. Next we have Halloween Racer. You guessed it, this is a Halloween themed kart racer. And for a Game Boy Color game, it looks really good, and it controls well too. Sadly, it is limited by the hardware, and as a result is very, very basic. I'm guessing there is a reason that Nintendo didn't release a handheld Mario Kart until the Game Boy Advance. It's fine if you can get it cheap, maybe get some fun out of this one, but it's just far too limited to really be a game that I can recommend to anybody. Next up then we have Sabrina, the animated series, Zapped. Before they became best known for the Shantae series, WayForward were making a bunch of fun handheld licensed games, such as this one. It is a 2D platformer that requires some exploration, rather than just going left and right. Collect things and zap enemies with your magic. That then turns them into humans, which appears to be the main goal of the game. You can also switch players from Sabrina to Salem, the cat, and this will open up new areas for you to reach. Yeah, pretty fun game. Yeah, was happy to get this one and got it nice and cheap as well. Some of the WayForward games can get expensive. Of course, a couple of the more expensive Game Boy Color titles are WayForward games, with the original Shantae and Wendy Every Which Way, which I would love to own, but again, too bloody expensive. So let's move on now to the sequel, and it is Sabrina, the animated series, Spooked. This is more of the same, only instead of turning enemies back into humans, you must collect specific items in each level. Honestly, I find the time that I played with this game to be slightly worse, mostly due to the enemies being very cheap, throwing projectiles non-stop, and even throwing them when they're off-screen, hitting you when you have no idea that they're coming or where they're coming from. It just didn't seem as good to me. Yeah, maybe if I put more time into it and get a little bit more used to it, it'd be better, but I think I prefer the first game, just based on the 10 minutes or so that I played of each. So, yeah. But again, WayForward, 2D platformer. Yeah, pick it up while it's cheap, I say. Moving on then, we have Turok 3 Shadows of Oblivion. How do you take a 3D FPS and put it onto a low-powered handheld? You don't. At least not as a 3D FPS. Instead, Turok 3 for the Game Boy Color is a top-down action-adventure game with knives, guns, bow and arrows, and even tanks. Were tanks part of the Turok series? I haven't played the N64 version of Turok 3. I don't remember tanks in Turok 1 or 2. Huh. Well, anyway, it's definitely not like any Turok game that I've played before, but it is pretty good. So, while the Turok 3 N64 game is getting a little pricey these days, Turok 3 in the Game Boy Color, a hell of a lot cheaper. Very much a different game, but still a lot of fun in my opinion. So I was pretty happy to have picked that one up. Moving on now, we have Wario Land 3. Yet another Wario Land game that I didn't own yet. It is more of the same from the previous Wario Land games, but levels are much bigger now with a ton more exploration involved, and Wario has access to more abilities as well. Oh, and he can no longer die this time around, though I don't remember if that was the same for the previous game, or if it was new in this game. I've owned Wario Land 2 for many years now, but it's been a while since I played it, so I can't remember. But yeah, this is definitely a game I want to play through more at some point in time. Yep, so, trying to complete my Wario Land collection, I had to pick up Wario Land 3. But in order to actually complete the collection, I also had to pick up, for the Game Boy Advance, Wario Land 4. Now, we take everything from Wario Land 3 and make it bigger and better. Using the Game Boy Advance hardware, Wario has basically jumped from 8-bit to 16-bit. And as we saw from so many games going from NES to SNES, the results are impressive. Better visuals, better audio, more colours, lengthier levels, more collectibles and power-ups, and smoother gameplay. A perfect pickup to finish my Wario Land collection. Yep, definitely grab this one. A lot of people believe it to be the best Wario Land game, so yeah, definitely grab it and play it. Okay, we have another Game Boy Advance game, and this one is Duke Nukem Advance. How do you take a 3D FPS and put it on an underpowered handheld? Well, apparently you just kind of do. Yeah, the Game Boy Advance is home to a handful of pretty decent 3D FPS games, and Duke Nukem Advance happens to be one of them. Sure, visually it is not on par with Duke Nukem 3D on the PC back in the day, but for the Game Boy Advance hardware it still looks really good in my opinion. More importantly though, it plays good, offering you some fun shooty action on the small screen. A worthwhile addition to my Game Boy Advance collection. Yeah, so this goes along with the likes of Doom, Doom 2, Dark Arena, and a couple of other games as well, first-person shooters on the Game Boy Advance. Always a little cool thing to collect, and I'll probably try and pick up the ones that I am missing. So yeah, it's always cool to see these underpowered hardware, attempt much more ambitious style games. Lastly then, we're going back to the original Game Boy now. We have the final game of this video, Mole Mania. Oh, so this game started out as a bit of a joke with some Discord friends who wanted me to play the game and claimed that I looked like the damn mole from the game. Yeah, the jokes went on for a while and I happened to mention it to another Discord friend, and the next thing I know, a copy of the game arrives at my house. Now, it is the Japanese version I have because, well, the English version does cost a little bit more, and yeah, I guess they weren't going to spend that much money on me, bastards. But yeah, so the game. There is some evil Mario, no, not that evil Mario, another evil Mario, kidnaps your mole babies and your mole wife. So you head off to rescue her, and yeah, it's a fun little puzzle game revolving around you being able to dig underground to access new areas. And then you can also move items and throw items as well to defeat enemies. Although it took me a while to figure that out because obviously the game's Japanese and all the signposts in the game telling you how things work, I can't bloody read. But once I did get used to it, I actually had a lot of fun with this game. But I do not look like the damn mole. Yeah, so started off as a bit of a meme between friends and turns out it's actually a fun game. Yeah, and there is actually a colorised version of this game now released as a ROM online from fans who have done it. There are tons of these colorised versions of Game Boy games, always worth checking out. So maybe one day I will check out the colorised version of it as well. So that was a lot of Game Boy Color and a couple of Game Boy Advance games that I've picked up in the last year or so. Finally getting them out into a video. Well, I'm bigcal, thanks for watching. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of my pickups. Let me know of any Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance games I should look into getting. And I'll see you again next time.